5. Okay. Oh, hello. Okay. All right. We're all good in here? Yeah? And then, where's Dane? Did we want to do yeah, okay, perfect. So I'll wait for him for that.
Okay, so do you want to know?
I suppose I'm introducing myself right now, but ladies and gentlemen, for our 4th episode of VettyTalks, please welcome your host. Ladies and gentlemen, for our 4th episode of VettyTalks, please welcome your host, Garrett Hardin. Am I good? All right. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Can we turn that off? All right. Well, welcome everybody to VettyTalks. I'm your host, Garrett. Well, welcome everybody to... We're having some technical difficulties right now, but that's okay. But yeah, I'm your host, Garrett.
I think it's the TV.
Is it the TV? We're having some technical difficulties. Oh, is it through the stream? Oh, okay. That should fix that. Okay, well... Anyways, welcome everybody to VettyTalks. I'm your host, Garrett Hardin. Today's episode is on some spooky stuff happening in Monterey. It's about the title of it is X-Files in Monterey. So today we're going to be talking about paranormal and alien activity in Monterey. So for our first guest, I'd like to introduce today. He is both an artist and a UFO/UPA enthusiast. I'm not sure how you say it. But everyone, please welcome Angus McClellan. Welcome, Angus. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me,
Of course, of course.
Absolute pleasure.
And for our second guest today, he is a part-time ghost and paranormal investigator, as well as enthusiast. Please welcome Scott Rhoades. Hi, Scott.
Hey,
Thank you
nice
for
to meet
joining
you.
us today. Thank you, guys. Oh, that's it.
I'll grab it.
Well, okay. No worries. All right. Well, we'll get right into it then. So, welcome, guys. Basically, well, you know what we're here to talk about. I guess we'll talk about, let's get an introduction first of, kind of who you both are and sort of, why you're here today. Angus, would you like to start?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Angus McClellan. I am a local artist, and I've been a UFO and extraterrestrial enthusiast essentially my entire life. Pretty much as soon as I could look up at the stars, I was thinking about whether we were not alone and whether there was something else out there. And yeah, I'm really excited to just share in the information, talk about a bunch of different topics today, and hear Scott's side of being a paranormal investigator.
Yeah. Scott.
Yeah, I'm Scott Rhoades. I am from the local area. I grew up in Pacific Grove. My kids are 4th generation from Pacific Grove, so I'm from the area, and there's a lot of local history. And I got into paranormal kind of when I was a young kid, so just got interested in it. And as I got older, started kind of doing things on my own.
Yeah.
I don't consider myself a professional investigator by any means, but I am definitely an enthusiast, and I have seen and witnessed some kind of eerie things. So
Okay.
get
Well,
into it.
we'll get into all his great stories today. So, for our first segment today, we're going to be talking about some paranormal activity. So, I'd like to get first, let's dive into Scott, some of your background behind, paranormal investigations, and what is your background around investigations? I guess, yeah.
Well, I'll start how I got interested in it. When I was a young kid, actually, I had a friend whose dad was a local historian, and he wrote, history books, but he also was a ghost enthusiast as well, and his name was Randall Reinstead. He actually just recently passed away, I think it was in the last couple months. But he had some books on ghosts of the local areas, the adobes and local hauntings and stuff like that, and I was fascinated by it when I was a young kid. Fast forward to my adult years, my brother, my oldest brother who passed away in 1993, was sick, and he had AIDS. And so the Christmas, like 3 weeks before he died, about 2 weeks before he died, we were all at Christmas together, and we took some pictures. And so in every picture that he was in, there was a weird mist, and only the pictures on that roll that he was in. There was a large mist by him, behind him, to the side of him, and then one picture where he was out of the picture, but he was sitting at the table, but he wasn't in the picture. That mist came from where he was sitting and then shot up. So we had those pictures for a long time. I wish I had them with me. My brother took them and lost them somewhere along the way. One of my other brothers took it and lost them along the way.
Yeah.
But that kind of sparked my interest throughout the years, and I started kind of doing things on my own and investigating the local history of the areas. And I would hear about hot spots, and I would try to go and investigate those areas myself. So.
Yeah. And have you been into any, I know we talked recently about you were on a TV show or something about ghost hunting, or what was that?
No, I kind of got into following the history of Ghost Adventures, which is the original show that shot paranormal activity and all these ghost shows that you see today. I started watching it from the very beginning, and it was one of my favorite things. And they would go to very interesting places, and I think a lot of the paranormal history of the places was what intrigued me the most. So they did a lot. They were based out of Las Vegas, but they did a lot in Nevada and Lake Tahoe. So when we would go to Tahoe for vacation, I would go to those spots that they went to, and I would try to do some stuff on my own. And I caught a few things here and there, so it was kind of interesting. So
yeah. What would you say is like the most interesting investigation that you've either done solo or with someone else?
Most of mine have been solo. I kind of just go to the area and just do a quick investigation. Do EVP, for those who don't know, is voice phenomenon. So you would record and try to listen to hear if you hear some voices, even though, like, let's say we're all three in the room, but there's a third voice or a line or something that you can hear. I've caught some really good EVPs along the way. But probably the biggest thing that I caught was in my son's middle school auditorium, at the Pacific Grove Middle School auditorium. He had a back to school night one night. And so I had heard that the gym or the auditorium is haunted. So after everybody had left the initial auditorium area and went into the classrooms, I snuck back in, snapped some photos, and I caught what I believe to be an apparition. I've actually sent you a bunch of my pictures, and you can maybe after the show download them, and I can explain those things to you. But there was a cool light anomaly sitting in one of the seats, and then when I enhanced the photo, it looked like a guy in a top hat with a cane sitting there. It was kind of cool. It just looked like a glimmer of light, but then what I would do is take it and run it through an enhancer on Instagram and kind of tweak it.
And there was no one in that gym whatsoever?
No, not in the auditorium, no. Everybody had left. There was no one in that auditorium. And it's a weird light anomaly that goes against the grain of all the light that's there. So.
But it made a shape of a man is what you're saying?
Yes, kind of a misty form, but yes, if you enhanced it and you'll see the picture I can show you guys.
And did you take this picture on your phone?
iPhone. Everything I usually do. I did have a camera for a while. I haven't been using it in a while, but everything I usually take is on my iPhone.
Okay, okay. Very cool. Let's see. And so you said you've been around the Monterey area for, since growing up.
Yeah.
What are some of the local hotspots for paranormal activity that you've been to?
I mean, this area has a rich history. There's a lot. I think there's I haven't looked it up, but there are paranormal groups out there on the peninsula right now. The Adobes, the Monterey Adobes, have a rich history of being haunted and paranormal. You can actually do ghost tours, I believe, this time of year. I think that they still run them, but I'm not sure. I've never really done it myself. But what I would do is just go there myself and kind of start snapping pictures and recording, sound and seeing if I catch anything. So the Pacific Grove Middle School gym is obviously one of my favorite spots. And I highly recommend this to anybody that gets a chance just to go, is the Point Sur Lighthouse in Big Sur. They were doing paranormal tours. I actually looked it up before I came to see if they're still doing it, because it's been a few years since I've been. I've been twice now. And it is fantastic up there. But I caught some really good stuff and some really good EVPs, full Class A EVPs, which is a full sentence.
Yeah.
And some groans and grunts and stuff like that in areas that there were some hostile, I guess, entities that were still there, angry entities that were still there. So.
And are there stories either made up or reinforced of why those activity might be there?
Yes, well, the Pointser Lighthouse has a rich history because there's been a lot of shipwrecks. It's been, I don't know, well over 100 years that the lighthouse has been in existence. And so the old lighthouse keepers, and I don't know if you've ever been down there, but it's on top of a hill. Have you ever gone to Big Sur and seen up on top of the hill, there's the lighthouses up there, and then there's the lighthouse keepers' quarters, and there's a bunch of outlet buildings, wood shop, the actual lighthouse itself. It is absolutely amazing, and you go up there, and it will change you. If you weren't believing that there's extra, paranormal activity, there is, because I took some pictures and some amazing stuff came out. The voice, electronic voice phenomena that I caught was Class A, full sentence,
Yeah.
And I was just like blown away because there was no one around me within 20 yards. And I got to know the lady, the docent that actually ran it. Mm-hmm. And she actually invited me. She wanted me to be a docent because she knew I was interested in it. And the next time I came down, I actually got to go into the lens room of the lighthouse, which was a really cool experience. Not paranormal by any means, but it was just like you're out there over the, the California coast in this 100-year-old lighthouse inside the lens room, which is awesome.
So beyond using your tools of investigating, have you ever felt any, like yourself, just like an aura of like eeriness or paranormal activity yourself?
Absolutely. I think there's a lot of people that are in tune with stuff like this. I felt like I was in tune as well. You start to get feelings when you go into certain places, and that's when a lot of times, if I didn't even know the place was haunted, I would just start recording stuff, taking pictures, snapping pictures. Mm-hmm. If you get into a cold spot, your hair will raise off your skin. Something, you can feel something's going on. And I think a lot of people are in tune with that paranormal, realm, I guess it is. And it's not for everybody. It's something that I don't try to convince anybody of what I've seen or what, because you should deal with everything that you believe in the paranormal world in some sense of skepticism, because you can't believe everything that you see. Mm. And sometimes it's fake, and sometimes it's just not real, or sometimes it's explainable. So.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Cool. We'll get a little bit more into sort of your technology of how you research that. We're gonna jump into some extraterrestrial conspiracies. So, Angus, this is your specialty.
Right.
So, where did your kind of fascination with UFOs and extraterrestrial encounters begin?
I mean, probably, very early on in life, like kind of what Scott was saying with the paranormal side of things. I had an interest in aliens and UFOs and mysterious phenomena for as long as I could really remember. And I've always been deeply intrigued by the idea of hidden information. Mm-hmm. So things that may be out within the public but are not largely recognized or accepted by the public to be truthful, regardless of the merit of the actual annotations or sourcing of said information. Yeah. And also I grew up in New Hampshire, so I grew up in a very rural area out there in the woods, and we had a pretty notorious case happen, I believe to be in the 1920s, which was the abduction of Barney and Betty Hill.
Oh, that was
the
late
60s,
late
actually?
60s, yeah.
Yeah.
Very famous case.
Very
great,
famous
great.
case.
If you ever get to watch the movie, it's
what is it called?
The abduction of Barney and Betty Hill.
Yeah.
And so that happened outside of Exeter, New Hampshire.
Oh,
and
that where you're from?
Yeah, where I was pretty close to, roughly an hour south of me. And so I was always very familiar with that case, where they were abducted after pulling over to observe a craft on the side of the road, coming home from a dinner party late one Saturday night. And they returned home to find that they had roughly 5 hours of missing time. So they thought they had just pulled over onto the side of the road, pulled out some binoculars, and looked at a UFO for 10 minutes. And when they got back home and looked at their clock in the kitchen, it was 5 hours later. Wow. And in addition to that, they had markings and scarring on their body, which could not be explained. And they were taken to doctors and then, photographed, and this is solid evidence. But was never fully acknowledged to be anything necessarily because of just the nature of everything and how questionable it was.
Yeah.
They were an interracial couple, and they actually put them under hypnosis, and you can actually hear the fear and the real tapes. They have the real tapes of them being put under, and what they saw on witness. They were abducted. They conducted tests on them supposedly.
So the stories are actually of them.
Yeah, no. So it is one of the more credible stories, and it was made into a movie. I can't remember the actor that played Barney Hill. He's a famous black actor. He's old. I think he's still alive. He's still around, but he's a.
And also, in addition to that, they were separated during those hypnosis sessions, so there was no way they could communicate with one another in order to determine like a singular story.
Yeah.
As well as that, they also both did illustrations of the creatures or beings which abducted them, and those illustrations not only matched one another's identically, but matched other reports of encounters with extraterrestrial entities whom they had no way of being in contact with or have heard about even necessarily. So that one was definitely one that was very prevalent within that area, which I was always fascinated with. Also, I think growing up within the early internet age, we were just exposed to so many different conspiracy theories online from so many different angles, right? Things, and you got all the classics like the JFK and Area 51 and all those things. And Area 51, I think, has some credibility to
Travis Walton, that was a famous abduction that happened back in I think it was the early 80s as well.
And so there are like numerous cases of verifiable abductions with no other solid explanation.
Yeah.
That, and I think also foundationally just the idea of the vastness of the universe itself, right? Where the universe is so vast, it's infinitely vast, and so much older than we could genuinely comprehend, that the idea of there being some form of advanced society or intellectual being, biological entity, whatever you would want to call it, alien, extraterrestrial.
It's not that far out there.
It's not that far out there. And most scientists would concur that somewhere within the universe there statistically has to be life because of the sheer vastness of it. And it's really just a debate on whether it is intelligent life that has been able to visit us or whether it's bacteria off in the vacuum somewhere just making energy.
Yeah.
I feel like they're coming out more and more now, and even the government's not really denying it. They're not coming out right out and saying it. But there's obviously rumors and conspiracy theories that we've had their technology for a long time. Obviously Roswell. Yep. So there is a lot out there, and as we get into it, the government's coming out and kind of saying, well, these are unidentified, like the Navy. I don't know if recently in the last 10 years or so, they've come out with a bunch of films that Navy pilots have filmed, actual objects, and that are, they're saying, we don't know what this is, and even the pilots who have been doing that their entire lives do not know what they are.
Yeah.
So.
And also, like, not only that, but these objects literally defy our conception of the laws of physics. They are operating with sustainable lift and at speeds which we are incapable of going or producing with man-made materials. And they don't know how they're doing it. And this has also led to what you were kind of saying earlier, where you were like, UAP, UP, ooh, whatever it is, right? And so the reason it's actually UAP, which is unidentified aerial phenomena. And it's been reclassified because they can't now identify whether these are actual craft or whether these are potentially some form of biological entity.
Like an actual, like
an actual alien.
Yeah.
That is capable of space travel or travel in these means without a spaceship like we need, right, to protect ourselves.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, we're gonna get very far into this, I feel.
Get deep.
Yeah.
So when did you move to Monterey?
I moved to Monterey back in 2016 to attend CSUMB.
Okay, and so going to school there, did you start to notice, you already had that fascination of, extraterrestrial life. Coming here, did that change your fascination at all? Did you discover anything new?
I would say that it was definitely peaked being here in California, and just the West as a whole of the United States has a higher propensity of UFO sightings and alien encounters than the East Coast does. And so there is some sort of phenomena going on there, and particularly within Monterey Bay, right? Like, I had heard conspiracies and theories of the underground tunnel system in the United States, which I'll get into further. So, and I don't know how much you know about that.
That's something I haven't delved into.
Yeah. So in 1976, the US government patented a drilling device that is theoretically capable of boring a tunnel half a mile wide. And it does this by superheating all of the dirt and silica and rock and everything surrounding it into essentially a glass tube. And the US government has allegedly been building tunnels with this machine since the mid-70s. And there is a tunnel network that allegedly, right, all this is alleged, connects, Washington, D.C., all the way through to the West Coast with a train system, like a maglev train system that operates underground, that can get you from one point of the country to the other, so side to side, in 45 minutes. And that tunnel system is allegedly connected directly to DLI from Area 51. And so allegedly, right, because this also ties into the idea that there could be an underwater base off of the shelf in the Monterey Bay.
You're kidding.
I'm dead serious. So there are many people who have postulated the idea that, because there are multiple recordings of the craft just diving into the ocean. So there are a lot of people who believe that perhaps the aliens, whatever they are, maybe other nations, have some form of base underwater, and that's where they're going and lodging to. And there have been multiple recordings of craft flying specifically into the Monterey Bay.
Yeah.
And these craft appear to be just, orbs of light, effectively. So not what you would consider to be a traditional UFO, like the flying saucer.
I've seen one of those before.
And yeah, they're
Yeah.
very common out here. And particularly, if you were to go out past sunset and look towards the Santa Cruz Mountains, the most likely spot for them to appear is on top of those mountains. And they'll come down from the mountains and then go over the bay and perform effectively in an aerial show of sorts. And you'll see some weird stuff that you might not have seen before.
I don't know what's going on in Santa Cruz, but
Yeah.
they've got some
yeah.
history, yeah, for sure.
So in terms of these sightings, is it always just a singular one, or have there ever been multiple found together?
No, there are a lot of cases of multiple being found together. And so there's a documentary that was released in 2016 by Netflix called The Curse of the Man Who Sees UFOs. I don't know if you saw that one. It's a local man named Cristo Rapolo, and he has recorded thousands of instances of these craft flying over the Monterey Bay. And in that documentary, there are multiple cases where you're seeing 4, 5, 6 orbs simultaneously interacting with one another, where they'll also blink and maybe communicate with one another. Not necessarily in like a binary or a Morse code or anything human, but they are changing colors and blinking in certain patterns and then responding with different rhythms of blinks.
I hadn't heard that. What was the name of the?
The Curse of the Man Who Sees UFOs.
I'm gonna have to check that out.
And he also talks about another incident that happened where this is somewhat separate, not multiple craft, but a man spontaneously combusted on the Pacific Grove golf course and burned alive.
Really?
Yeah.
When was this?
This,
A few years ago, that was down in the bathrooms down there?
yeah, down in the bathrooms.
Yeah.
And so he tried to get into the bathrooms and was unable to. And there have been multiple people who have seen craft down on the Pacific Grove golf course, not landed by any means, but from that vantage point.
Yeah.
And so, I think there's definitely some level of credibility to it. To say it's aliens conclusively would be false, and I can't say that,
Yeah.
but something weird's going on.
Have either of you seen what Angus is talking about in terms of these, lights on the bay?
I have not, but I've seen things and I'm like, oh, it's an airplane because it's got blinking lights on it. But then I've seen lights coming across from Santa Cruz, but I always thought it was like the jetliners coming in across the bay. But I can't say conclusively that I've seen that. I have friends that have claimed to have seen UFOs over the bay, and I've heard reports of it. So yes, there was one. Actually, I was just telling him, Carmel Valley had on the Nextdoor app, which is a local app for the local areas where you can, either complain or, do whatever you want. There's a lot of Karens on there, and Gladys Kravitzes from, I don't know if you guys are too young for that, Bewitched.
Yeah, I am.
But anyway, there's a video of this lady took just like 2 days ago, Carmel Valley, and she has some type of light anomaly on it, and she couldn't explain it. It wasn't your typical light anomaly. It was hovering. It was changing colors, and she thought it was a drone, and someone else said they saw the same thing. There's a whole thread on it. So there's she has a 25-second clip of whatever it was. It looks like a light in the sky. It's hard to tell, but she thought it was, odd enough. She said, I'm a little scared to put this out there, but this is what I saw, and I don't know what it is, so.
See, I was excited to talk about this episode because I've seen something exactly like what you were talking about, and it was the first time I came to Monterey Bay to tour the colleges, and it was late at night. Me and my friends snuck onto the Pebble Beach golf course, and on our way back, the first thing that happened is the luminescence in the sand started glowing. So whenever we would step, the sand would start glowing this very bright blue wherever we stepped. And then all three of us, we saw the same exact thing. We looked out on the horizon, we saw this tiny orb of light that almost flashed white and purple. And then suddenly it just sat there and it zipped across the horizon almost 10 miles at a time, and it just sat there. And then it zipped all the way back, and it literally, like you said, went down and just disappeared, and we never saw it. And we were all just holy shit, what? Nothing, there's nothing that could be that fathomable or that fast, what the hell is that? So, me being, having that personal experience is just no, and hearing all these other very similar stories, it's how much can you really, deny it or just put blame onto something else,
Yeah, I mean, after a certain point, you have to realize that there are things going on beyond human comprehension.
Yeah.
Right? We live in a world where everything that we are talking about is essentially our best guess. And we are all functioning under the presumption that we have the right idea and that we're doing the right thing and that we know what's going on. But in actuality, no one really knows the true fundamental nature of the universe. And so I think it's important to be skeptical and take everything with a large grain of salt and use a scientific mind to deduce whether this is actually theoretically possible, or whether it's a trick of the light, or whether you could have seen something that you thought was a UFO but was actually just a natural phenomena which occurs which you have no idea about, or whether it genuinely is something outside of explanation.
Yeah.
Because there are those things every day that I think all of us have experienced on the planet that will just lead you to question and lead you to ask, what is happening here?
Wow. We'll get into our next segment with that, bridging the gap. So basically, why do you guys think, and we'll start with Scott on this one, why do you feel like Monterey itself has such a profound, paranormal and extraterrestrial presence itself?
I think it's every place with a lot of history. Things happen, and I see entities. There's two types of hauntings, or there's a few types of hauntings, but the two main types are residual, which is something that's playing back on a loop, almost like you're watching a recording, and then there's intelligent hauntings. I believe the rich history of the Monterey Bay, some of the strife that's happened from the Indians to the Spanish people coming in to the westernization of Monterey. We have a lot of older buildings. We have had a lot of tragedy. Cannery Row itself, this place right out as you step out the site, is supposed to be extremely haunted. If you walk up and down these places at night, I would love to do, when you guys weren't around, but this used to be all old canneries. It was abandoned when I was a young kid, and they would burn down every few years or every couple of years. This hotel right here, the aquarium was an old abandoned cannery, and we used to try to sneak in as kids. But I can see there was a lot of probably early deaths, and I think that leads to a lot of hauntings. I don't know if it's residual or actually intelligent haunting that happens in certain areas. I tend to believe that any area with a rich history or of things happening where there's tragedy or just strife, that people get caught and they just haven't moved on, and they're just living their, thinking they're still here, and they're just living their lives. And that's where the paranormal kind of comes in. Is it every single place? I don't know. I can't tell you. I know what I've experienced in certain areas, and I know what I've heard about things being haunted. The Stokes Adobe, downtown Monterey. There's a picture I sent to you. I caught some interesting stuff there as well. Some apparitions, and I took a picture in this library room, and there was no one in there. and you'll see as you look at the pictures, but there's a face in front of the book, it looked like a full-on head, and there was no one in this room. And then there was a couch, and as I zoomed in on the couch, I enhanced the couch. It looks like someone's lying in a coffin. And it looks like there's a lady with a bonnet on, and it looks like she's in a coffin sitting there, and you can see her face and stuff. But I'll go over those with you later on, and we can take a look at them together.
I guess a quick follow-up question is, why do you, what do you feel is, I guess, the transformation between someone who's in the real world as a person and as a human being, and how do they become, I guess, this paranormal activity?
Probably they don't think that they've crossed over. They think that they're still alive. I think that would be my best guess. Like I said, I can't really, put my finger on it, but I feel like people die tragically, and they don't think that they should have died, maybe, or they don't know that they've died, so they're caught in this limbo. And they're not unwilling to move on to whatever their final destination. I'm not an over religious guy, but I do believe in a higher power, and I do believe that there is an afterlife. And I think some of these people are just caught. So
they can be caught in the middle.
Yeah.
Cool. Do you believe in a definition of hell and heaven, or when you die, is there a place that you go?
Well, for some people, yeah. I mean,
yeah.
For some people, I don't know. I think there is a place that we probably go to. I know that after my brother passed away, I had some really odd dreams, and one of them was a place. It resembled what I would assume to be heaven, but he was there under a tree. And there was animals like bunnies and stuff like that. And he came to me, and it was a bright blue light. And I had this weird, it was such a weird dream. It was so vivid, I still remember it to this day. He was on a tree. And it was almost like you were looking out over Carmel Valley with no buildings in it. It was just a beautiful valley. And so it kind of let me know that he was there. You know what I mean? Like he was okay, Okay. So I do believe that there is some kind of afterlife place that they go to. And I don't know whether it's heaven or hell, I don't know.
Or if it's just Earth, but without everything bad in it.
Yeah, maybe it's
kind of like your dream that you had, honestly.
Well, we all contain energy, so we are balls of energy. Where does that energy go when we leave? Is that our soul? Is that our energy? Is it go somewhere else? We can get into this. You talk about reincarnation
and Buddhism.
Just coming back in a different life. I do believe in reincarnation. I do believe that people were probably something in a different life. Where does that energy go to when we die? Yeah. I don't think it just goes away.
It's recycled.
It's almost recycled. Yeah, and that's where you get maybe some of these what we call. The hauntings where it's like playing on a loop, like you get these buildings down here, people walking, you hear the sound of a footprint or someone walking up and down stairs or something like that. It's just it's like recycling itself. So.
Yeah, okay. So Angus, I guess bridging the gap between that, why do you feel like Monterey has such a profound extraterrestrial presence in it?
Well, I think, like on the nose, it's just the topography of the land itself. I think there's something very unique about the ecological systems at play here, specifically with how deep the bay is and how fast of a drop-off there is within the bay. That could play something into it. I think the military presence. Monterey has had an active military presence since World War II, at least, and to say before then, I'm sure.
Well, no, it's been since the Spanish because it's such a strategic point. Monterey was the capital of California when the Spaniards had it, and then it was moved to Sacramento later on when the United States took over. But yeah, I think he's right. I think that it's a very strategic place. I was told in history class when we were going to high school that the nukes were pointed here because we had the DLI, we had Fort Ord, used to be it was CSUMB, so.
Yeah, okay. And so I think there's definitely something very compelling to think about there. And I think anywhere where there is a significant level of military involvement, you find that there are a strange occurrence of UFOs or UAPs. And there is some strange commonality, whether that is you could theorize all day as to it's the aliens looking out for us, man, and they don't want us to blow each other up.
No, they're kind of watching us, making sure we're not screwing things up, but we seem to be doing a pretty good job of it lately.
Yeah,
so
right?
Sure.
Or is it even a question of are they threatened? Or do they not want to be threatened? Yeah. So they're observing us to the point of saying, well, if you reach this level of technological sufficiency, we're just going to take you out.
Yeah.
There's any number of theories, and it's all theoretical.
So kind of like, the military sees a strategic spot like Monterey Bay. The aliens or extraterrestrial life sees the exact same thing, or at least the military activity. And so I guess what you're implying is, they really want to overlook or at least have a very close eye on what is happening in this area.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the most prevalent theories.
Okay.
But I mean, also the UFOs in this specific area go all the way back to the Native Americans who were living here before there was any colonialization. And they had myths of lights in the sky coming down from the Santa Cruz Mountains.
Really?
So, yeah.
Wow.
And I can't remember the name of the specific tribe that lived in this area, but you can look this up.
There was Ohlone, there was a couple.
Yeah, it's the Ohlone.
Okay.
And so the Ohlone specifically. And so to me, that is evidence in and of itself that something was going on here before Spanish colonialization. And like, who knows? Who knows? There's also the theory, right, that like of starseed and the entire idea of like ancient aliens and UFO historians and that whole crock. I don't necessarily believe a lot of that, but I think there's a compelling idea behind it, which is all cultures in the world unanimously share the idea of gods or angels or higher beings which have descended from the heavens to imbue greater power or technological sufficiency onto the people, and potentially even biologically reproduced with those people in order to form what is modern day humanity.
Yeah.
And do I believe that to be the case? No, I don't. I am a proponent of evolution. I believe in science. I believe in what we can prove. But I do think it's fascinating that there are so many similarities between despondent cultures with no way of communicating.
Yeah.
And so something's clearly been going on for a very long time that we are not privy
like
to.
in the pyramids, and then you see in Peru or wherever else, and you see they have etchings or drawings or paintings or whatever, hieroglyphs of the same things.
That can't even be explained
That can't be
today.
explained, and they're 17,000 miles away or however many miles apart.
Or even, like the placement of the pyramids, where almost all of the pyramids within the earth happen below the equator or occur below the equator, and we don't know why that is. But there is something that happened below the equator which consistently led cultures to develop pyramids. In addition to that, famously the Great Pyramid of Giza in Egypt is aligned directly with the star Sirius from the Andromeda Galaxy. And the star Sirius is allegedly supposed to be the place from which the descendants of the original pharaohs and what they were called the Anunnaki and the gods came from. And so we don't know. How could they have known where Sirius was? Or is that purely coincidence?
Yeah.
We don't know. And it's not the only pyramid in which that is the case, where it is aligned directly with a specific star system that they should have had no knowledge of.
And several civilizations, including the Maya, and they have had very technologically advanced readings of the whole solar system. And yeah, I guess that is a big question of how are they able to even conceive of that, because most people can't even look up from their phones nowadays.
Right. Well, and so another piece of that, I just think it's a fun fact, but Sirius specifically is also allegedly supposed to be the location or the homeworld of the Greys. So the Grey aliens are the most traditionally known about aliens, the big head and the big almond-shaped eyes, and they're the little dudes, the little green guys, right?
Yeah.
And so they are allegedly supposed to come from a planet directly connected or within the orbit of Sirius.
But that's an actual star you can see in the sky.
Oh yeah,
correct?
yeah, it's a very well-known star.
Has there ever been any telescope readings or Hubble's telescope onto that star itself to explore
Not to the best of my knowledge. I mean, we've never explicitly seeked out Sirius as a new place where life may occur.
Yeah.
Just to think that we're by ourselves, and it's like I think he was saying earlier, is just ridiculous. I mean, we are a pebble in this. We're not even a pebble. We're like a minute grain of sand, if that, in this entire universe. And to think that we are the only entities in this entire universe, I can't fathom that. We're the only ones here.
Yeah.
And so there's got to be something else out there. What that is, I don't know.
Well, I suppose that goes against a lot of religious beliefs. So,
Well, yeah.
we are
Yeah.
the very center of the universe,
Yeah.
and God put us on this earth for a purpose. But
they are in some ways inherently conflicted with one another, right? Because every gospel,
Or combined with each one.
yeah, or even combined with one another, right? Because it's not a mutually exclusive thing or situation where it's one or the other. It could be some conjunction of the two.
yeah,
But there is also a certain level, right, of every gospel acknowledging that you are created within a specific image for a specific purpose with this higher power and with this greater plane of existence which you could eventually ascend to on some level. And they're, talking about aliens is kind of different because it is raw biological material, effectively. And it's a matter of whether what we understand to be biological life exists somewhere out there.
yeah. So I guess kind of back to the bridging of the gap. So sort of the bridge between this, I suppose, is alien life has to do with very ecological substances, real that we weren't conceived from just a simple or just from a god and placed here just as humans, whereas paranormal activity has to do with more of the afterlife of humans itself.
Well, I would say the central crux of it all, right, is the idea that there is a soul. Honestly,
Correct.
I think that's the fundamental distinction.
Where does that soul go? Where's that energy go?
Where does it come from?
We are, as far as we know, we're the only people in the universe that have thought process, and so how can we not have a soul? I mean, some people don't, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, depends on who they are.
But it's also right about what do you believe the soul to genuinely be?
Yeah.
Like in your case, it sounds like you believe it to be more the raw energy, like the life force, which kind of flows through everyone, or we all have.
I think it is, and I think that's why a lot of people don't waste your time. Every day is a blessing here because you never know. And that's the way I look at it now. It took me a long time to get there, but every day you wake up, it's a blessing. And especially we get, as far as we know, we get one shot. I don't know, hopefully not, but make the most of it, I guess, I would say, more than anything else. And be open to, whatever life brings you. It's paranormal, for me, was something interesting, something different. Like, I can't explain it, and I still can't explain it. I don't know if what I've seen or felt is real, but I know what I believe, and I will not try to convince anybody else to believe me or anything that I say. But if you're interested in the paranormal or you're interested in UFOs and things like that, there's things out there that you can do and kind of have fun with it. And I think if it's fun for you, something that interests you, there are avenues that you can take, especially in this local area, because there's a lot of rich history of both what we're talking about here, paranormal and the UFO.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I think with that, we'll jump into our next segment, which is, the local perspective. And so I guess my first question for this is, if there was ever a hardcore, full-on sighting of an alien, how do you feel like humanity would react to that, based off of both religious beliefs, but as well as just, seeing something that has been talked about and believed for so long, but has never been, fully taken in by all the human eye?
Do you want?
Go ahead. Jump in on that one.
I'll go first on that. Well, I think fundamentally, right, there would be a large group of people who would principally reject it.
Yeah.
Just straight up. Regardless of how valid the footage was, there would be a certain group of people that would say, that is not real, I do not accept that to be true, and I won't believe it until it is materially in front of me, and I can touch it, or it can touch me and mess with me. And even then, I still might think it's a hoax, or I'm being tricked, because on so many different levels, we live in a society where truth has become a subjective medium for which the individual can ascribe their own values.
Yeah. Everybody has their own truth, so it is difficult. I think, if you see something, and I think it is okay to be skeptical, but for what you're saying, if there was hard evidence, I don't think people, we always try to explain things to fit our narrative, I think, sometimes. And so I think there's a large population that would, well, like you said, reject it. And there's a large population that would say, yeah, no, that's it, that's true, that's right, that's real. It's okay to be skeptical. You should be skeptical to a certain extent.
Do you feel like religious beliefs might, if anything, evolve after seeing something like that? To sort of, if anything,
Either
reinforce,
solidify, or
their beliefs that they already have.
I think, right, that it would, on a certain level, no pun intended, alienate a large group of the religious individuals, because certain people would accept that as just being under their umbrella of how they view their religion. And what I mean by that is that they would say, well, I mean, yeah, of course there's aliens. God is infinitely wise, so he would obviously make an infinite number of aliens and intelligent life out there. It can't just be us. But then there would also be people who would literally say, well, that's an abomination in the eyes of God.
Yeah.
And there's no way I would ever accept that as intelligent life. It doesn't look like me, and I know I was created in the image of God, so that cannot be. And so it has to be the other, and it has to be rejected.
Yeah.
But I don't know, I think a really good contextual example of this, honestly, is just the congressional hearings that have happened over the past couple of months, and how the US government and people who have worked within the government of high reputation and high standing and rank have actively admitted we have biological entities. We have bodies, of things that we have recovered from craft which have crashed here, and no one's saying anything about that.
Yeah.
No one has actively acknowledged that.
But do you think? I think the government's slow. You think they're releasing it now slowly just to get us prepared for it?
Yes, absolutely. I think they've had this. Obviously, they've had this information for decades. I mean, not obviously. Most people probably don't function under the presumption that the U.S. government is hiding alien life. I do, and
I think there's some things that need to be hidden from people.
Yeah.
And so there's a large dose of the
do you think
population.
Do you think it would do more damage or more positive to have the confirmation that we were not alone?
It just depends on who you are, and what that meant for, if the government said, this is not a good thing or it is a good thing, I don't know. It's hard to say. It's hard to say. I don't think, like I said, I don't think people would accept it. And it would, it would rightfully scare the bejesus out of a lot of people,
Well, if anything, I feel like it would turn the narrative on, a lot of social issues nowadays into something even greater of, are we supposed to accept these new beings, or are we supposed to be at war with them? And that can either be a uniting force or a dividing force, which I feel like, honestly, because most humans, we always find something to divide against each other, might use that as just another dividing distraction. So.
Well, and this has been a really interesting conversation that has happened theoretically on the sociological scale with governments, where the U.S. government since the 40s has been theorizing as to whether the alien invasion would be enough to cause world peace, and that if they were to be able to falsify an alien invasion, would that be enough to band everyone together on the globe into one unionized human society? Because humans are so inherently xenophobic within our traits and within our cultures in some way that we need an other to fight against. And having that other be an extraterrestrial would provide you with the ultimate other, because there is nothing more removed from us than something that is literally not human. And I think it's definitely an interesting idea. I don't know. Do I think people will ever fully get along? Probably not. There are always going to be the group of people who are just antagonistic to be antagonistic, or to be villainous or evil, or whatever you want to call it. But there will also always be people that will band together. So it's just kind of an aspect of human life.
Yeah. It's very interesting that it could go either way. Yeah. Scott, do you have anything to add for that?
No, I think he did a good job of covering that pretty well.
All right. Well, with that said, we're going to keep going into this wild episode right after our 5-minute intermission. We'll catch you soon. Thank you.
All right.
All right. studio right now? All right, we're back. Oh, God. We're back. All right. It is the ghost. All right. Well, on that note, we're back, ladies and gentlemen, to our 4th episode, X-Files in Monterey. Let's get right back in discussion with our guests, Angus and Scott, here today. Our next section, or our next segment, is investigative technologies and techniques and technologies. Sorry. All right, so let's see. We'll start with Scott for this. So Scott, you've done multiple investigations over your time. Do you mind kind of sharing us sort of your strategy and as well as the technologies that you use to discover some of the things that you have discovered?
I'm kind of old school. I use very minimal technology. So my iPhone. A lot of people use recorders, like handheld recorders, to catch EVPs, which is a great way to do it. I use my iPhone for the EVPs, and I've caught some.
What is an EVP?
It's voice phenomena. It's electronic voice phenomena. So basically it would be if you and I were in a room and then there was silence and then you heard someone talking underneath. So there's different levels of EVPs. A class A EVP is a clear, concise, full-on sentence or full-on words that you can hear someone say help or yes or no, or they're answering you. The one that I caught at the Big Sur Point Sur Lighthouse, I was out by the outhouses, no pun intended, but I was told that was a hot spot for EVP. So I was by myself, I was away from the group. It was a windy night. And so the legend has it that the old lighthouse keepers were Danish. So I was just recording. I said, is anybody out there, the usual technique, not provoking or anything, but, is anybody out there? And the rest of the group was about probably 40 yards away. And so I played it back and I heard, it's late and we are going to bed. A full-on sentence, and there was no one near me. And it was crazy because it was getting about 9 o'clock when we were supposed to start wrapping up. And they were essentially, I felt like someone was telling, and it wasn't like a European Danish accent. And it was really cool. I was like, okay. And then, I've caught a few other ones. My daughter was performing at the middle school in Pacific Grove, and she was doing an interest. She was singing Aida. She was playing the lead. And as I was sitting, she was practicing. It was not the actual performance, but it was like a rehearsal. It was dress rehearsal the night before the actual performance. And she started singing, and at the beginning of the song, I can hear, she's going back to high school. And there was literally, I was sitting in a row like that by myself, and there was no one within 20 rows of me. And so I was like, wow. So
you heard that just by yourself?
Yeah, I kind of played it back and I heard something. I'm like, what is that? What is that? You have to, if you're doing it intentionally and you're trying to catch AVPs, you obviously play back. And a lot of times you'll get nothing. But then sometimes you'll get some really intelligent stuff going and you're like, there's no one around me. How is that happening? You know what I mean? So I've caught some really good EVPs. I wish I still had them. I lost them when my iPhone transferred. But I have quite a few. As far as the technology used, you can spend thousands of dollars on paranormal technology. They have, I don't know if you've watched any of the newer shows, Ghost Benders, Ghost Hunters, things like that. They have full elaborate vans with screens kind of like this, set up like that. Cameras, infrared cameras. They're not blued up, but the body technology they use, where it just like a skeleton, you can see, it'll map your body, but then all of a sudden they'll see another body mapped that's not there.
Yeah.
So there's an infinite amount of technology, and it's becoming, voice boxes where they do radio frequency sweeps over multiple frequencies, and they'll catch full-on words or full-on sentences. There's a lot of that. I'm more old school. I like the traditional, just handheld recorder, camera. For me, that was the best thing. I liked some of the older episodes of the Ghost Hunters where they're a little more primitive. I think the technology is almost taken over too much, a little bit. I think there's something to be said for just being in a quiet space and kind of doing your own own thing with your regular with your iPhone camera, or just like a decent camera and taking pictures. I snap a lot of photos. If I think something is around, I'll start snapping photos.
Yeah, so what is the process of, you find a new place that you want to investigate? What is the sort of, the process of, finding out new and more evidence?
Well, I mean, you just got to, figure out how you can get into that place. If there's tours, like I was telling you about the Point Zero Lighthouse, they used to do a paranormal tour, and it was like $100 a person. And they would take you up at night, and you'd be in a smaller group, which was nice. They still do the evening tours. I looked online to see if they still do the paranormal tours. I'm thinking about giving them a call. I think this is kind of a catalyst for me to jump back into it.
Yeah.
But if you hear a place is haunted, the Stokes Adobe downtown, I think I just showed you a picture of what looks like a face in the bookshelves. I went in there after I had a few drinks, and I was there at night, and when they were closing down, there was no one in the library area out front, and I started snapping pictures. I just snap away, and if I catch something that's odd, I'll take it and I'll run it through the Instagram app, and I'll kind of enhance.
But you usually hear about these places
beforehand. Absolutely.
Has there ever been an instance where it's been completely just out of the blue, where you've discovered something?
No, most places I kind of hear about, and that's kind of what draws me to each of the areas that I've been to investigate. I've been up to Nevada, Lake Tahoe. I've done an investigation at the Washoe Club, which is a very famous haunted place, and the Union Brewery, which both places Ghost Adventures has done. I actually did the Union Brewery before Ghost Adventures did it, which was kind of cool. And the owner gave me a picture of what looks to be a child in a stairwell. And so I enhanced that picture to kind of bring out and make it look more, and like I said, it's not real, but I met with the owner. He was an older guy. He actually passed away in the last few years. I don't think he would be one to kind of make something like this up, which is weird, so I don't know, like he didn't have it didn't seem like he had the technology to kind of, fake a picture like that.
Yeah, so, when you enhance an image, how does that go?
So I just do contrast, usually contrast, and kind of darken things and kind of bring out the image of whatever someone says it is. So in this case, it was a little girl in the stairwell, and it was kind of blurry and light, and I just sharpened it all up and just kind of run it through an app and just kind of start playing with it. It usually takes me about 5 to 10 minutes to kind of really enhance a picture to bring out the image. There was another one. I was with this group. I had a bad experience. I joined a paranormal group at Chomp, and it was the one and only time that I went to do the Union Brewery. But they got a picture from a couple in Salinas, and the couple handed it over to them, and I enhanced the picture. And they were sitting in their car. It was a young Hispanic couple, and outside of their car was an image. It looks like Michael Jackson, if I'm being honest, but her arm was gone. But outside in the park, which was on Constitution, somewhere over there, which used to be a Japanese internment camp, right there. It looks like a soldier, or almost like Michael Jackson. I'll show you guys afterwards. I just found it on the picture. It's kind of an interesting photograph. I can't tell you it's real or not. It's not my photo. I didn't know anything about the couple that took the picture, so I don't know what their background is. I just know that, hey, this is there's something there. Whether they faked it or not, I don't know. So I can't, definitively say this is paranormal, but it's something interesting, And so what I like to do is when I see other pictures, if someone says, oh, this is an image of this, I take it, I'll run it through the app and try to figure out how I can enhance whatever they're seeing. And I've caught some really interesting stuff that way.
Yeah.
And I've actually sent it back to the groups of paranormal groups, like on Instagram that I follow. And this one guy, and I'll have other pictures, but I caught a mist and I enhanced it, and there was some really awesome stuff in it. Looks like soldiers and a hand and someone pointing and stuff like that. And like I said, I can't tell you that it's paranormal, but I find it interesting, and that's kind of what drew me to it.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of technology that you can use, and you can spend a lot of money doing it, or you can go simple and just kind of do it on your own. A camera, your iPhone, and
anyone can get into
record
it.
Yeah, you can get into it. Yeah, so just do it on your own.
Angus, how about for you with extraterrestrial activity? Have you done any sort of researching or investigating on your own?
Independently, I mean, Not particularly. It tends to be pretty difficult for an independent researcher to just go out and try and find aliens.
Yeah.
And most of the time,
Just go down to the beach and look, stay there for hours. You know?
Exactly. Most of the time, it won't be too fruitful for you.
Grab a beer.
I've yet to hear somebody who's really going after that and found one.
Yeah.
So that would be pretty interesting, or even a craft for that matter. You could obviously just be watching the skies and have time lapses and do different camera work where you could be searching for aliens. I haven't dedicated a significant amount of time to that.
I think if you're going to do something like that, you have to hear about a hotspot. You have to hear like that thing in Carmel Valley. I don't know if it's real or not, but like if you start to hear that, oh, they're seeing a lot. At that point, if it were me, if it was like if they're starting to see a lot of ghosts down on County Row, I'm going to go down to that spot where the people are saying, oh, it's haunted, and I think that's the way he would probably end up going about it as well.
Exactly, yeah. And like I have, gone down to the beach at night in order to specifically look for the light orbs that I was talking about at the very beginning of the podcast. And I have seen them out there, and I have seen them while I've been in the woods at CSUMB. That was the very first time I ever saw a UFO was out there, and I saw
Woods? Where?
just right behind the main stretch of campus, effectively.
okay.
So Old Fort Ord,
Yeah.
pretty much. And I remember being in the woods one night and looking up and seeing an orb and thinking to myself, that looks strange for a star.
Yeah.
And watching it change color and then move in an erratic pattern that I could not feasibly reason was any sort of manned aircraft.
Do you feel like with the advent of drones that there's a possibility that things like that, people do see a lot of the drones?
Absolutely. And I think there's so much room for misinterpretation when it comes to those things, or even just natural cosmological
But even
events.
15 years ago, we didn't have the amount of drones in the sky that we, 10 or 15 years ago, we didn't. Now there's they do
They're
drone
everywhere.
shows now. They
Yeah.
just did one down in downtown Monterey, I guess, the other night.
So in the realm of like the unexplained, there are often misconceptions and hoaxes. So how do you go about debunking these hoaxes and separating fact from fiction, I guess?
You have to go into it, not just like I said earlier. You have to go with a healthy amount of skepticism. I obviously feel like, don't believe everything that you see. And I believed stuff that was fake, at first, but it took me a while to kind of go, okay, no, this is not it. And then you see people post stuff and it's like, hey, no, it's not an orb, it is dust, you know what I mean? So there's a difference between a light anomaly in the paranormal and dust. You can tell what dust looks like, or mist or rain or stuff like that.
Yeah.
You have to have that skepticism and realize that not everything that you see is paranormal.
Yeah. Angus, how about for you? Any hoaxes, or how do you really decide what you believe?
I think one of the best ways of analyzing those situations is to look at the first-party sources and the direct sources who have had direct contact with whatever that event was, because those are going to be the most authentic pieces of information that you can get. But you also do have to recognize they will be the most clouded with bias, because someone can become so convinced of something that they believe
You can't tell
they've
them.
seen
Yeah.
that you can't tell them it's not that.
Yeah, I've seen that online before. People are so convinced, and then they get mad when people kind of tell them, "No, that's not really what you think it is." You don't want to burst their bubble, but it's like you can't keep putting junk out and saying it's real. It's not.
Yeah.
And that would be the same for me too. Like I said, I don't try to convince anybody of anything I've seen or heard or done. I just know what I feel. And if you don't believe it, that's your opinion. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's like these beliefs that you guys have, come to. They've all been done based off of critical thinking. So what's the importance of critical thinking when thinking about the unexplained?
Oh, it's the most important aspect of thinking about the unexplained. If you can't critically reason and you can't critically deduce, then
Can't
how
let
can
your
you...
emotions get involved with something like that. You want to. Sometimes you want to believe something so badly, and it's just like you got to think, okay, is this real or not?
Yeah.
And so it's just, I think if you take it too emotionally, you have to have that skill of separating that from what you know is true and what you believe is true.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Yeah. Anything else that either of you want to add on to techniques or just technology in general for finding?
Well, I would say, specifically when it comes to extraterrestrials or like UFOs, one of the largest points of evidence that we have are like the radio signals, which we have received from deep space radio mapping, where we still can't determine the origin of radio signals that we've been receiving for over 30 or 40 years at this point, and we haven't been able to decipher them.
And do you believe that there's anything, not radio-like that could transmit those kind of things, or the signals?
Within our current understanding, there is no explainable reason for that to be occurring in deep space. There is nothing that would produce that type of wavelength or that type of signal that we know is naturally occurring.
So it's almost like the most, believable, unexplainable events are completely unexplainable. Like there's nothing that can even be remotely related to those events for them to be the most believable.
In some ways, yes. It's the ones left without any other explanation, right? Because that's ultimately what makes something unexplained or mysterious, is that there is no conventional school of thought or deduction that could lead you to the proper conclusion. And that's why we still have so many mysteries within the world, right?
Yeah. All right. Well, with that said, we're almost done, folks. We're going to get into our Q&A. So we're going to take some questions from the audience now. I hope you guys have found this interesting, because I sure have. Do we have any questions from the audience? This very short gentleman right here.
I have a question for both of you. I think I'll just start with Angus. Do you think that it's of great value or important for people to believe or have an open mind for the supernatural?
To repeat the question, Sorry, could you repeat the question?
I think I got it. Like,
It's important to believe in the supernatural.
Yeah. Do I personally believe it's important to believe in the supernatural? No, I don't. I don't think it is important or conducive to being a good person or a thoughtful person or an intellectual person or really anything about yourself other than perhaps your openness. And I think there are just as many good people that believe in crazy out there theories as there are absolute nut jobs. And I think it's important for people to have an open mind about the world within which we exist, and that it's very important to recognize that we have misunderstandings both historically and scientifically surrounding the nature of modern civilization, and it's important to question those things and question how we got here and what our greater purpose is in life and the universe and the world as a whole, or even spiritually what that means in terms of, like we were talking about, with having a soul or a higher power, or what those things mean. And I think it's fundamentally important to the evolution of human society to continue to ask questions, because it's the only way we ever get an answer.
Yeah. Right.
That's a good answer.
Do we have another question? Or Scott,
It was, do you think it's important to believe or not believe, or?
Is there value in believing?
I think, it depends on the person. Do I think it's the most important thing that I think about? No, absolutely not. But I think you have to keep an open mind to these things, and I guess that's where I'm at, is always keep an open mind with a healthy dose of skepticism too, as well. There are things that we just cannot explain out there. And that's kind of what drew me to it. It's like, I want to know, maybe I want to know if there's something beyond what I'm sitting in right now, this unit this vehicle that I'm in. I'm a lot older than you guys, so I don't have as many years left, so I want to make sure if I'm doing the right thing here. But, I think, a catalyst for me was, you talked about being a good person or a better person, and there are people that are, I don't want to say fakes or phonies, but for me, it was my brother passing away more than anything else. And I believe that he's in a better place. And there are people that would tell me he's not. But those pictures that I saw on what he did on this earth, he was a good person, and I aspire to be like that, a good person. And I feel like if I can be in touch with that side and just be open to my feelings and open to other experiences, I think it makes everybody a better person.
Maybe it is a little more important than I think it is. So, yeah.
Do we have another question? Back? Yeah.
Alrighty, my question's for Scott.
Hey.
What is the scariest paranormal investigation you've conducted yourself?
You know, I went to the Brookdale Lodge with my kids. I just did an on-the-fly investigation. I took them to the mystery spot up in Santa Cruz Mountains. And if you guys don't know, look up the Brookdale Lodge. It's supposed to be one of the most haunted places in Santa Cruz County. That's what I was telling you earlier. You were like talking about Santa Cruz, and I'm like, what the hell's going on in Santa Cruz? I took my son up there, and there's a lot of haunted paranormal history at the Brookdale Lodge. Ghost Adventures actually did that, that's what kind of drew me to that. And I was friends online, I'm still to this day, with some paranormal people from the Santa Cruz area. And I said, you know, I took the kids, they were younger, they were real young, and I went up with my son. And the Brookdale Lodge is this lodge, but it has a big atrium, and the brook actually goes through it. So there's a water source, which is kind of conducive of paranormal activity. But there's a lot of haunted history there, you know, some drownings in the pool, and some other stuff going on. And I snapped some pictures. My son was behind me, and I was kind of just snapping pictures. I go in and start recording and snapping pictures just all over. I got orbs all over the place. And it was just it was a beautiful place. But my son actually saw something, and he ran out. I mean, literally saw a shadow or something, and he like would not go back in. So I had to kind of cut it short. I was only in there for about a half hour, 40 minutes, you know. There was a bar area and then the big atrium area. I have pictures of it I can show you guys afterwards, but it literally kind of raised that something happened, and he still to this day won't really talk about it, why he ran out of there, but he got scared because he saw something. And that kind of scared me because it was my son, you know, you were very protective of your kids when they're little and stuff. So I think that was one of the more interesting ones. And then once I go back to the Pointster Lighthouse, it wasn't exactly scary, but we were in the tool shed, and there was this guy, one of the old, you know, I don't know what they're, guys that would work on stuff up there, and he lived out there, and so it's off in the distance. And we all went there, the group of us went there, and we're all sitting there, and I'm recording. And when we got done recording, there was a loud and like a slam, and we're like, when did that happen? You know, I wish I had that EVP. I would play it for you guys. It was so amazing. I was like, oh my God. You know, it's like this growl, this gruff growl. I mean, he was known to be angry with people, like, get out of my shop, you know what I mean? So, and I caught a few other EVPs up there that were really intense, full-on Class A EVPs, a full sentence. The one did I already talk about this? I would think I was talking about on the break. I was by the porta potties in the outhouse. Up on the Pointster Lighthouse, and that was supposed to be a hot spot. The lady that was the docent told me that this is a hot spot, that you get a lot of EVPs. I was by myself, so I like to separate myself from the other people so there's no pollution. But it was a windy night, and it was, you know, the stars were out. It was absolutely gorgeous. And I heard a full-on, like, I played it back, and there was no one around me within 20 or 30 yards. I could hear the other ladies in the background. A voice said, "It is late, and we are going to bed." And I was like, what? And it was in a European Danish accent, and the old lighthouse keepers used to be Danish. So I thought that was kind of interesting, cool. And it was a little, you know, it's a little scary when you hear stuff like that. You play it back and you're like, what the hell is that? You know what I mean? So when you catch that stuff, that's kind of stuff that kind of hooks you and keeps you coming back in. Like I said, I can't prove it's real or not, but, you know, it's there, and that I think is fun, and that's the exciting part of, you know, doing investigations on your own and kind of getting into it, so.
All right. Do we have another question in the audience?
So my question is for both of you as well. And it's, how do you, and I guess it's sort of just to pick your brains, but how do you guys deal with non-believers? Like, if you go about people, you don't.
Well, I mean, you know, like I said, everybody has their belief system. I'm not going to force anybody to believe what I think or see. If I can't convince you, I'm not going to try. You know, I know what my core beliefs. I know where I'm at with it. I don't know about Angus, but yeah, that's on somebody else. I know some people that you wouldn't believe, and then I know some people that you would think believe, but don't, you know. And I never go around trying to convince them. I actually keep a lot of this to myself, you know. This is the first time I've openly talked about some of my experiences, because when I started doing this, I was like, people are gonna think I'm crazy. My friends are, you know, this guy plays sports and, you know, likes boxing and baseball and football and all this other stuff, but I just, like, I thought it was interesting, so I just started doing things on my own, so.
Yeah, I'm pretty similar into the camp with Scott there, where I don't think it's important to convince others of my belief in any way or regard, and I don't want to convince others of what I believe necessarily. If anything, I will push back with providing them genuine evidence, you know, on certain situations. If there's something I feel particularly stuck on, or like, you have this wrong, then I will try to give them the information or the evidence which supplies them with a different alternative answer. If they can't reach that conclusion on their own, that's not on me.
Right.
And, you know, what am I gonna do about it? I'm not a teacher, you know, and I have some pretty out there theories, and I think it would be irresponsible and arrogant to assume that other people should or would
Naturally take
believe
it,
whatever I believe.
And I've been proven wrong a couple times, or someone has come to me and I was kind of convinced of something, and then I really thought about what I was believing in, and like, okay, they have a point, you know. So you have to be open to criticism of what you do.
Right. Well, all right. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, that is all the time we have for our audience questions. So we're gonna head back in now to our final statement. So I guess my final question for you guys is, you know, what is the importance of, you know, being not only open to the possibility of, you know, extraterrestrial and paranormal activity in life, but also what's the importance of, you know, doing some of that research on your own and really, you know, scratching that itch for your brain?
You go first.
I mean, for me, like I said, it's just something that's personal. I feel like if you're interested and it's something you want to get into, I feel like something like this will kind of reinvigorate my interest in it, and maybe get out and do a couple more quick investigations here and there. But I don't, you know, it's just, if someone's interested in it, there are places you can go. You can look online. There's ghost tours. Just find out about the haunted history of a place, and then just go investigate yourself if that's something you're interested in. There are groups that you can join. There's online groups. There's actual groups that do, you know, actual full-on investigations with a lot of equipment. You know, I have some friends online that are fully into that, and that's what they do. And they have little shows and podcasts like this, and they go through and do it. You know, it just depends on the individual and what you want to get out of it. Like I said, if you're open for it and you can find out for yourself, just do a little research into the history of your area that you're living and find out some of the haunted hotspots, and maybe show up sometime and see if you can get in and do a quick investigation and get out and see if you got any evidence, you know, so.
Yeah. Angus?
I don't know. I think we live in a world with such a hyperabundance of information that it is extraordinarily important to seek out your own information and to fact check your sources and to make sure it's coming from a reputable place and to do your own independent research with anything that you're passionate about, be it algebra or extraterrestrials. Like, it doesn't matter. You need to verify that you are getting solid information that you can rely on, period. And I think that's just fundamentally very important to developing a more cohesive view of the world as a whole, or what you feel to be an understanding of the world or what this life is. And I really can't undermine how important that is. Do your own research, look it up, spend the time. If you're interested in it, take a little bit of time out of your day to read about it or hear what other people have said and theorize, because it won't do anything but broaden your horizon or enlighten your worldview.
All right. Well, thank you. So, let's get into that time, ladies and gentlemen. So, I want to thank you all, and especially our audience, for being here for our 4th episode of VettyTalks. You know, this is our first ever season ever, and you know, I'm pretty proud of how it's gone so far. It's come a long way, and you know, we've really opened a lot of people up to new perspectives on multiple issues. So with that said, our final episode, which is in a week from now, is actually a concert. called Sounds of the Sea. Now this concert is we're bringing in local artists from Monterey and musicians, and we're going to be not only interviewing them on their experience of making music in Monterey, but we're also going to get them here to hear them play as well. It's going to all be live broadcasted. We're going to have a big audience here, and it's going to be a real fun time. So stay tuned, everyone, and we'll see you next week on VettyTalks. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Garrett.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, man. All right.
All right.
You cut?